Good evening, and welcome to the Gifts Differing podcast. I'm host Albion, and today we're getting into some deep waters. I'm joined with the great Sam and the great Alicia. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
So, I'm going to throw something out here. You both are big fans of the probabilistic block universe. Here's a quote I want you to unpack. I'd put my marbles on the probabilistic block universe. Why? Well, consider this. Even though it may not be possible, there's only one possible future. There's one thing for certain. Only one future will inevitably take place. What do you guys think of that quote? Only one future will inevitably take place. I mean, that sounds like a pretty definitive statement about the nature of time. Sam, let's start with you.
Right, so let me dive into it. What this quote is pointing to is a paradox at the core of the probabilistic block universe model. Even though the future exists as a field of potentialities, there is one very powerful realization. Only one future will be actualized. This doesn't mean the future is deterministic in the strict sense. The future is probabilistic. Yes, but that means all those possible futures exist. There's a range of them, and each of them carries a certain likelihood. But ultimately, despite the array of possibilities, one of them has to unfold.
And that's where it gets interesting, because people often think of quantum indeterminacy as meaning total randomness. Like, everything is chaotic, and there's no true inevitability. But what the quote is saying is that, even within the uncertainty, one specific future will eventually be realized. It's a certainty within the uncertainty. The probabilities are in play, but the outcome is bound to happen. One timeline will eventually be actualized, and that's a kind of inevitability that I find fascinating.
So, even though the future is full of all these potential outcomes, it's not just random or open-ended. There's a path that's already there. It just depends on which potential gets realized. It's like everything is set up, but the what happens is in flux until it's locked in. Am I hearing that right?
Exactly. The future exists in a field of potential. Sure, but only one of those potentials becomes real. In the same way that there are multiple probabilities, when you roll a die, there's only one result that you'll see when the die comes to rest. The future, despite being filled with probabilistic events, has a single outcome that will inevitably manifest, even though we can't necessarily predict which one it is from this vantage point in time.
Right, and this leads us to think about it in terms of a timeline, almost like an unfolding map. We can look at the future as this vast landscape of potential futures, but only one of those paths will eventually become the road that we all walk down. And the interesting thing is that even though all those possibilities are real in a sense, they exist, they're not all equally likely. Some futures have a much higher probability of becoming the actualized timeline.
So it's like the universe has already decided that one of those futures is the one that's going to unfold, but how we get there is still shaped by everything happening in the present moment. It's almost as if the future is like a destination that's guaranteed, but how we arrive there is shaped by choices we make in the now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of the probabilistic block universe model. The future is already there, but it's not locked in as a singular, preordained line. It's full of potential, but only one of those potentialities will manifest. And that gives us this unique role in shaping which potential future becomes reality, while knowing, in a sense, that the one that's going to happen has already been set into motion.
Exactly, and if you think about it in terms of quantum mechanics, there's this wave function collapse concept, and it goes something like, until a measurement is made, there's a probability wave that describes all possible outcomes. But once something actually happens, once a decision is made, once an event occurs, the wave collapses, and one of those outcomes becomes reality. The same could be said about the future. It exists as a set of possibilities, but ultimately, only one will collapse into the reality we experience.
So it's not random. It's not just that all these futures could happen, but one of them must happen. There's this probabilistic certainty that one path will be taken, even if the exact route we take isn't fixed from this point.
Exactly. It's like there's this almost quantum certainty to the whole process. We might not be able to predict exactly how we'll arrive at that future, or even what specific decisions will lead us there. But the fact remains, one future will unfold, no matter what. It's the inevitable manifestation of probabilities that already exist, even if we can't fully see all of them right now.
And this creates a kind of dance between free will and determinism. The present is this point where we are actively involved in shaping the probabilities, but the future, while probabilistic, still demands one of those outcomes to come to fruition. It's like we're constantly steering toward a destination, but the final arrival point is determined by the probabilities and the course we take. There's still room for choice, but the endgame is already locked in.
Wow! So we're like riding the probabilities, navigating through them in the present, but the future is inevitable. It's like the giant web of potential outcomes that all converge on a singular actualized path.
Exactly. And that's what makes the present so powerful. It's not just where we exist, it's where the future is being created. We are actively involved in the process of collapsing the potential future into the one that will inevitably take place. But we can't know exactly which future will manifest until it actually does.
And that's what makes time and the present moment so extraordinary. It's this kind of crucible, this place where all these possibilities are constantly converging and being shaped. We are creating the future right now, even as we live through it, and we can't fully predict which of those futures will emerge until it actually happens. But one thing is for certain, the future is there, and one of those possible outcomes will necessarily take place. The present moment is truly extraordinary because it's the very formation of the potentialities that will shape the future. The present is like the seed of the future, where all of the possibilities are being grown from. It's the most important moment in time, because it's the one where the future, in all its probabilistic nature, starts to take on form. The present is constantly creating the future in real time.
So the present moment isn't just this transient space, it's actually the mechanism that determines the path the future will take. If you consider every choice you make, every choice is a brushstroke on the canvas of a future that's not set yet, but it's there, waiting to come to life.
Exactly. Think of it like a fluid sculpture. Each decision chisels away at the marble, and the final form of the statue exists. But it hasn't been fully shaped yet. The future is like a block of marble, with countless potential forms inside, but which one gets revealed depends on the decisions made in the present.
And this is what makes it so extraordinary. The future is there, but it's not a singular, static reality. It's this ever-shifting, probabilistic field of possibilities. And in the present, we are the ones bringing those possibilities into existence. In a way, the present moment is the most important moment in time, not because it's all we have, but because it's the place where the entire future is being determined.
Man, that's some deep stuff. So, even though it feels like we're just living in the present, we're actively determining the future, and it already exists in some form, just waiting to be brought to life. That's a huge perspective shift. You guys are onto something big here. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, and thanks for blowing my mind today.
Thanks, Albion. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having us.
All right, folks, there you have it. Mind-blowing insights about time, quantum physics, and how we shape our own future in every present moment. See you next time. God bless you.